Base. Okay, here we go. We're here with another edition of Wizetics Mental Wealth. So we get do a sound check right here, see what's going on, what we got going on over here on Facebook, because you know I be live. Good. Sound check, good. So we're gonna get right into it today, November the 11th, 2025. So we're gonna go right in. Wizetics. This is something right here you need in your arsenal because life is business and business is war. So you got to have strategies, tactics, and maneuvers. This is the foundation for that. So let me go into this in the appendix. I'm going to the appendix of my book. It's called The Wizetic Blueprint to Power, a unified economic philosophy of Black excellence and global empowerment. I'm going to read that title again. The Wizetics Blueprint to Power, a unified economic philosophy of Black excellence and global empowerment. Introduction. Okay, hold on. Written by Wize Shahid, aka Allah King Wize, founder of Wize Network Academy, from the forthcoming body of work, The Black Aesthetics. Introduction. Wizetics is not just a system, it is a world view built upon the 7 pillars of prosperity: mindset mapping, strategic structuring, life operations, biz genesis, market mastery, monetization and scaling, and legacy leadership. It is a cultural codex of empowerment. While deeply rooted in the Black and Brown experience, its application transcends race, geography, and politics. This appendix connects the core philosophies of some of the greatest Black economic minds: Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Amos Wilson, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, into a singular living blueprint for power, resilience, and legacy. So I'm start with the first one right here is Powernomics and the Vertical Integration Model. This is by Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics outlines 5 strategic pillars of Black economic independence: education, economics, politics, law enforcement, and media. His vision emphasizes vertical integration, owning the pipeline from production to distribution to consumer base. This model directly informs the strategic structuring and market mastery pillars of Wizetics. The goal is not mere participation in capitalism, but ownership, control, and protection. Wizetics key: control your ecosystem, develop internal group economies, and own the platforms where you do business. That's really deep right there. So I'm not going to go over all of this appendix. You want to really get deeper into it, you can order this online at any major uh, book outlets or book platforms: Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. You can order from me. You can contact me, DM me, call me, whichever way you want to get in contact. I can get you a copy. I can get you a signature copy. So I'm going to go into a certain part though right here. So in number 6 of the appendix, it says, from Garvey to Greenwood, the legacy of Black Wall Streets. Wall Streets with an S. A lot of people just think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, but there were various other areas throughout, Black communities that were structured in such fashion. So it says Marcus Garvey UNIA create one of the largest economic movements in history, complete with shipping lines, newspapers, factories, and international trade. His call, one God, one aim, one destiny, still echoes through every pillar of Wizetics. Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jackson Ward in Richmond, Virginia, North Carolina. These were proof of concept for what is possible when unity meets industry. The Wizetic key for this. History is a mirror and a map. Learn from it, then improve on it. Universal application: why everyone benefits. While born from the struggle of Black people, this system is not exclusionary. It is inclusive excellence. It offers the blueprint for any group seeking economic sovereignty, cultural pride, and to intergenerational wealth. Communities in Appalachia, the rural South, or global diasporas can adopt these principles. Wizetics key. The blueprint is culturally specific but globally applicable. Economic self-reliance is a universal language. So why do I say that it's culturally specific but globally applicable? So I'm gonna be real quick on this one. When you look at the Black experience in America, you're gonna see something that shows you a framework for global leadership, global uh, guidance, and a strong moral compass. So again, real fast, let's just go through this because some of you may have never thought about this in the way that I'm about to kick it to you. I'm gonna drop down right here and look right here with this one, right? So check this out, right? At one point in time, when you look at the economy prior to what became known as the transatlantic slave trade, and let's go back further, in the days of the biblical times, Quranic times, um, Judaic times, in the times of Judaism. So let's look at that part. 2000, the last 2000 years. Let's go back 2000. Let's go back 4,000 years, basically, right? In the time frame of what they talk about Abraham. And when you look at the biblical scriptures, and of course, it's not a religious theology class right here. This is economics. 101 economics, 360 degrees. Check it. When you look at the scripture, it talks about the relationship between a master and a slave. Just go through the Bible scripture, especially in the Old Testament. It'll give you like certain scenarios of how the relationship goes with a servant and a master, slave and a master. Okay, economics is what we're talking about. These things were considered to be the order of the day. And these things were considered to be ordained from a perspective of holiness and righteousness. Fast forward the Quranic times of the Prophet Muhammad, because we're talking about from the Judaic times of Moses, in the 5 books and the Torah or what have you, that speaks about how you interact with a master and a servant, slave, whatever have you. Then we go to the aspect of the Quranic times of the Prophet Muhammad, and we say they say peace be upon all those that were prophets. Okay, keep it moving. Now check it out. In the Quran, it talks about the relationship between a master and a slave as well, a servant and a slave. I mean, a servant and a master, or someone who is, the economic boss, person that's the boss, the person that's the laborer. Basically, it's how those terminologies became evolved. So fast forward 1500s, 1600s, we have the transatlantic slave trade. Boom. And we have slavery where, you know, all up to those times, what I just named from the days of Moses, 2000 BC time frame, Prophet Muhammad time frame, 1400 AD, 1400 years ago. Yeah, 1400 years ago. So it's like 600 AD, 700 AD time frame when all of that was taking place, where the systems were moving throughout the different land masses, geographical locations, spreading out from one just small area of, Palestine, Arabia, but spreading out into Europe, spreading out into Western Africa, all the way over to the Western Hemisphere of the Americas, as they now are called, right? Slavery as an economic system. Terminologies that were used, like I said, we speak in English now, but okay, master, servant, master, slave. Nowadays, boss, labor force, or employer, employee. But here's the main point I'm talking about. And I'm going to be real fast with this. The main point I'm talking about is this. Once the transatlantic slave trade comes into a major global economy where those that were called Africans being enslaved by Europeans, we're speaking about Portuguese, Spaniards, French, English. English became the dominant factor in the transatlantic slave trade, which brings about North America, which brings about the United States of America, which now we have Black people who are considered to be property of white people according to an economic system and a government elect or body with legislative uh, 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 um, um, codified laws. Basically, we have this codified inside the Constitution of the United States, the supreme law of the land. So we got the executive, judicial, legislative, or the executive, legislative, judicial, right? So that's the president, Congress, Supreme Court. Then it drops down on the local level of the government, of state government, local governments. Bottom line is slavery going on. White people having ownership of Black people. Within this time frame, you have Black people beginning to bring about a certain dialogue, sparking a certain conversation that got people to reevaluate that system of master slave, master servant, meaning someone that's a person owning another person, directly having complete ownership over that person. That began to spark a certain type of consciousness. It began to spark a certain type of awareness. People begin to say, wait a minute, that's not right. It's not right for someone to own someone else as property. It's not right for one human being to own another human being as property. It's not right for that to be an economic system. It's not right for this to be inside of our law, constitution, supreme law of the land. That's not right. But what got them to see that it's not right? What got them to see that it was not right, even if they didn't see that it was not right, they began to respond to it as if it was not right based off of the dialogue that Black people begin to engage in, along with everything that was supporting that, meaning people fighting to get free, slave revolts, Underground Railroad. All these things were like the supplement to the dialogue, the conversation, meaning that, yo, this is not right. That's what the conversation was. Me being owned by you is not right. That is not something that should be morally or is humane. This is not humane. But prior to this dialogue, it was acceptable as being a humane narrative, the norm within society globally, not just in the United States, because the transatlantic slave trade is not the first time that slave was an economic system being applied. Remember, I just said in the days of Moses, the slave system was activated in the form of an economy, a governing system that was normalized all the way up to the days of Prophet Muhammad, all the way up to the days of George Washington to Abraham Lincoln. And that's when it began to be like, we can't accept this no more as being the order of the day. We can no longer accept a human being having ownership of another human being, and that being the form of our government application of laws in our economic system. So Black people that were here in the United States provided a narrative that became something that changed the outlook on economics. You catch what I just said? We changed the narrative of economics. We cause economics to be reimagined. A new paradigm came into play, which now was black people can no longer be held captive. Black people can no longer be subjected to be property of white people, right? Because now a different narrative, a conversation sparked a different way of thinking. Some people didn't accept it, of course. They went along with it because that was the law, but deep inside, they might, they didn't agree that we shouldn't have to own you. We can't own these black people right here. They didn't agree with that. So as these things are taking place, other things are taking place, because just because the South lost the Civil War and the North, you know, a, a way of how they wanted to do things, which is black people no longer be owned by white people. So the black people that were on the plantations in the South, they were set free. But now, how does the economy evolve? What type of economy do we have now in the United States of America? Because there's no more free labor or labor where, I'm paying you just a little bit to get by. Or is it? Because slave labor during the transatlantic slave era and the post transatlantic slave era, when they stopped importing people in, and it just was being generated just from the procreation and the stock of the livestock reproducing itself, meaning black people having babies, and then they're taking their babies and bringing them up into the slave system. So now there were certain times where money was being provided in exchange for that labor from the black labor force, black slave labor force. Because in certain instances, you can read about black people bought themselves out of that slavery. They had enough money where they purchased themselves. Because why? Black people were the commodity. Black people were considered to be the product. Like, we were products. Literally, the black people were literally commodities, right? So they were getting paid so little for their labor that it really didn't amount to like a fair exchange, like a real mutual agreement on, you know, I'm providing you value, you providing me value, meaning I'm providing you value in my labor and you providing me value in the payment for my labor. So it was, slavery. If you really pay attention to what's considered to be, okay, the minimum wage, or this is the minimum wage, and you go to work at McDonald's or you work here at Walmart, you get paid a little bit more than the minimum wage. But the minimum wage is the bare minimum that I have to pay you is this. Anything extra by law is it's my discretion. But by law, I have to pay you at least this amount if you're working according to a certain amount of hours under certain conditions. That's minimum wage. To me, to my mind's eye, the way I draw this up, that's still slavery. Even if you're getting paid above minimum wage, because there's other factors that's in place, which you might not be paying attention to, that realize is directly connected to that, which is the interest rate and inflation. But we're not gonna get into all that. I just wanted you to see that black people have been set in the stage and the standard of how the government is going to operate in the United States and ultimately the world for a very long time, just by the dialogue that we bring up, the conversation that we bring up in regards to us responding to the oppressiveness or the oppressive conditions that we find ourselves in, based off of the structure of the government and the application of the laws that the government has put in place. That's been going on for a long time. So we've been challenging certain things with this narrative. That's not right. The whole time we keep saying that's not right. But the people who put it in place in their mind, they saying this is how we want to do it. This is the right thing to do. And then over a period of time, with us challenging these situations, which evolve into the Reconstruction era, convict leasing. Oh, we got this law. You can't stand right here loitering. You owe a fine. The fine is so high, you can't pay that fine. So now what you get is lockup. And once you get locked up, you got a felony because the 13th Amendment says, okay, under these circumstances, I can re-enslave you. So now you go over here and you're working and working and working at this business like Carnegie Steel. You're working for the steel company on the railroad. The labor is still cheap labor is still slave labor where they capitalizing off of it in a very, very luxurious way. They able to live a high level luxury lifestyle over these people, hard work and receiving really no real just compensation for the input. So, Jim Crow, legal institution. Throughout the time of these eras, what do black people be saying? That's not right. We keep telling them that's not right, but in their mind, they perceive it to be right because they openly do it in the public as the social norm, and it's codified as legislation law, and then it's enforced by the criminal justice system, the cops, the criminal justice system, judicial system, right? The legislative body come up with the law. It's okay, governed by the executive and enforced by the judicial. But black people is constantly saying that's not right. So now we have this economy that we have today where you can work, get you a job, work, you can make above minimum wage, but you might not understand the cost of living and how it's operating. And you can purchase some things, you can take a vacation, you got some health care, you got some things like that. Some people don't got none of that, but then you got some people do. Now it's options, it's available to you. Oh, if you just make the right decision, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get your education and go get a good career, and then you have access to these things. You have access to the American dream. You have access. It's not the government's fault, because you have these things afforded to you based off of the decisions that you make. So that's it goes like that in certain aspects of things, right? So now you're working and you're working and you're working. I got my career, I went to college and I got to pay this money back because I didn't pay right then and there to go to college. I got a student loan, went to college, and now, I'm working and working and working. I might get into the career that I went to college for, that I majored in, or I might not. Either way, I still owe that money back for that student loan. So you working all your life, pay the student loan back. You might just be barely making it because you got other bills and all these things. So what is the solution? Because I'm just talking about a lot of things that were considered to be and are considered to be problems, challenges, obstacles. You have to realize the fundamentals of knowledge itself. Meaning, how do you do for yourself? So now we're talking about entrepreneurship. I said all of that to say, to free yourself from slavery, because slavery still exists. It's just by a different term. The results still the same. The same conditions still exist. They just exist in different forms. Of course, it's not the same exact point for point condition. Nothing is the same point for point condition. People don't ride horses no more up and down, the way to travel from one point to the next. Some people might wherever they at, but that's not the norm. The norm is you ride a car. The norm is you can get on a plane, get on a bus, travel, right? So the same mode of transportation is not the same. We don't have the same means of transportation today as we had back in those times when those laws were in place and those structured institutions were in place, such as slavery. In the name of slavery, I'm your master, you're my property, chattel slavery, such as Reconstruction era, convict leasing. This law says black people can't do this, so therefore if you do it, you broke the law. Take it back a little bit further. If you are on the plantation as a chattel property of some white person, and the law is you can't read, and if you do try to read, you breaking the law, and the ultimate law is you can't be free. You can't choose to just leave when you want to leave. As a human being, you're subjected to this other human being's will. If you try to leave, you break into what? Law. So now evolve to where we at today. You sell this crack cocaine, you sell this cocaine right here, you got this gun right here, and this gun right here, you're not supposed to conceal this gun because you don't have no concealed weapon license, or you got a felony because you got caught selling some crack cocaine. Now you took a plea bargain and now you got this charge and you got this on your record. You can't carry a gun again because now you're a convicted felon, and also you can't vote, you can't serve on the jury. You see, what's the solution though? Because you got a lot of people talking about what these problems are, and you may wondering like, why? What does this got to do with Wizetics OS Life Biz infrastructure? It has everything to do with it, because you got to get to the root cause of things to be able to address the effect of what's going on. You want to free yourself in a way that you're not subjected to oppressive means or oppressive conditions. You complaining don't change it, and getting radical and getting mad and screaming, fuck that, marching, that's really not the way to change it. It could be a supplement that supports what? The dialogue, the conversation, backed by doing for self. When I say do for self, meaning that you have your skill sets, you got your education, you got your skill sets, you perfecting whatever your craft is, you mastering whatever it is, and you provide it as a piece of leverage in exchange for something else of value. So you have something of value and you exchange it for something else of value, and the value is relative to what the person perceives it to be. If this person don't perceive this to be what you are telling them it is, as this is cost, and they don't pay you for it, then it's not worth that. It ain't worth that then. I mean, it's not worth that to them, but you might can find somebody else that it might be worth it. But if you pushing this to different people, and it comes to be that nobody is paying for this, is it the price or is it the product? Is it the service? Is it the product or the service, or is it the price? The reason why people are not buying it. And you have to study that from a certain perspective. And that's why you have research and development. You run trials and see what's working here, and then you know how to pivot here, pivot there. But the basics is you got to have the drive. You got to have the mindset to be able to do this, because now the part you got to get around is fear. Let me look at this camera. Fear. You got to get past the fear. Oh man, I can't do this. I got my bills I gotta pay. I can't just start my own business. I just can't quit my job over here working for these people at this company and work for myself and then hire people to work in my company. But is that you becoming just like the people that you're against? If you say, well, I'm gonna start a business and I'm gonna hire people too, because that's what they did. They got a business, they hire people too. What separates you from becoming like the same thing that you say you don't see as being right? That's where the conflict comes in with a lot of people, because you have some people, black people, become entrepreneurs and then they repeat the same exact thing that you said you were against when you were on the outside, or when you were the victim of it. Meaning that when you had to go through all the oppressive hurdles and jumps around different roadblocks and barriers to start this, and then scale. But then you the same people that you were against, well, not necessarily against because they were against you, but you're saying like this is not right. It's not right. And then you start to do it. So that's where we have to deal with a lot of self-examination. You don't want to become that which you say, you know, you saw as being the wrong behavior, the wrong way to operate. But the part you got to get past is, for many, is the fear. Yes, you can start your own business. Yes, you could build a business that's a money making machine that is able to take care of you, your family, as well as your community, to add onto your community, to give back to your community, because your community is given to you. Because in order for you to become profitable in a business, your community have to provide you with what? Money for your products or your services. So you have to give back to that community a certain way. It's various ways to give back. It don't always have to be monetary. You can give back in the form of education. You can get you can give back in the aspect of certain discounts. You can give back in the form of, yes, philanthropy. You know, you can give back in the form of just having it inside the community itself to help bring up value of the property that's there. The tax code can change, and not the code itself, but the status within that code. So that's what it is today. That's what I'm coming with right here. That's why I say the Wizetics system, the 7 pillar system is, is set within our culture. Is set for us. That's how it's set, right? But it's inclusive though. It's inclusive. It's culturally specific but globally applicable, because when black people in America were in the condition of slavery, chattel slavery, it was culturally specific to us. But the way that we fought for our freedom became globally applicable. That's my point. That's what I'm ending on right here today. That's when I started out and I was reading certain aspects of my book Wizetics, and I was speaking about, okay, yeah, the 7 pillars are culturally specific to us, but they are globally applicable. Meaning these the principles that coincide with these 7 pillars can be applied to the whole planet Earth, can be applied internationally, can be applied locally, on a local level, state level, national level, international level. It could be applied to the Asian agenda. It can be applied to the Hispanic agenda. It can be applied to the Caucasian agenda. It can be applied to any group of people on the planet Earth. That's what make this so powerful. This is what make Wizetics so powerful, because it's a framework that's not set as exclusive. It's not exclusive. It's culturally specific, but globally applicable. And so, if you want to get a one-on-one with me, you want to come inside, a group coaching or one-on-one coaching, you want to get a part, you want to be a part of the academy, you want to be a part of the, certain master memberships where we building on things like this and becoming solutionaries through an economic framework. We building up certain economical frameworks, financial institutions, the applications, all the things that deal with showing and proving, not a lot of just philosophy, even though certain things are philosophical, but we showing you how to apply these things in your everyday life and be impactful and be transformational. So you're going to go from this point to that point, because you got to know certain history. You got to know how to put that history in the right context for what it's really worth. Because, you can put commentary to anything, but does the commentary actually match the actuality of what was and what is? That's where things get blurred. That's where the blurred lines come in. That's where the fluff come in. That's where you have a lot of so-called, false prophets. You got people promising this and promising that. I can show you this. I can show you that. And you might get shown what they're telling you, but it's only part to a whole. You got to have the whole thing, because just because you get a business credit card with 0 APR for 12 months, you got $50,000 credit card, business credit card with 0 APR for 12 months. Somebody got that for you. They showed you how to do credit repair. They got your credit right for you. They did all of that for you. What you gonna do with that? What you gonna do with that? Once you get the $50,000 credit card, you can swipe it here, swipe it there. But if you don't understand the mechanics behind how did the system get to be the way it is for you to have to even go the way that you're going, and what's the future of things? Because we can look behind, right, and see the past, which is a reference for right now today. But certain people that's qualified are the visionaries of where it's going to be tomorrow, because that's where generational wealth building comes in. What's going to be here after? What will be a reward in regards to destruction of the devil's civilization? Peace and happiness. I will give all I have and all within my power to see this day for which I've waited 379 years for. That's what that says. Some of you might not understand that, yet break it down a certain way. And what will be your reward in regards to the destruction of oppressiveness? Because you don't want to become an entrepreneur and then become oppressive yourself. You don't want to start your business and have your product and service, and you are oppressive with your product and service. You became the same very thing that oppressed your grandmother, your great grandmother, and even you too. You figured out a way how to get from up under it a certain way, but you came from up under it and became that which put you in that situation to have to come from up under it. Now you got somebody else up under it. And people can dazzle in front of you all this material things. I got a Maserati, I got a Rolls Royce, I got a Ray. They can present, oh, I got the big jewelry, I got, or we on the yacht and we taking private jets, and all those things are appeasing to the eyes. But everything that glitter ain't what? Gold. So with me, I'm showing you a stage after stage after stage growth and development process that's genuine. And you can accept it or you can reject it. That's on you. I did my part because I'm going to be able to sustain and maintain my cash flow regardless, because I'm undeniable. What I'm kicking, what I'm dropping, you can pick it up or not. Are you picking up what I'm putting down, right? Because when you undeniable, you can't be denied. That's just how it goes. Can't be denied. So that's what I'm showing you, how to be undeniable. You don't have to compromise your morals. You don't have to sell your soul. And in some cases, people are just ignorant to what is and just seeking to have based off of self-preservation. And they're doing whatever they got to do to get to wherever they think they need to go. And they're losing certain things along the way to it now hereafter. Ain't what it is. That's what that's about. See, it's culturally specific, but globally applicable. That's what Wizetics, that's the Wizetics way. The Wizetics way. We stand on purpose. Because if you don't stand on purpose, you're going to fall to the pressure. That's it for today. Peace.